Hey, Afronauts. I'm Chelsea Gaden.
And I'm Jill too, and welcome to the show.
Yay.
All right, we are recording this the day before Thanksgiving. That's how much we love you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Chelsea, what are your plans for tomorrow or for the week?
I'm going to the in-laws, gonna have dinner, but that's it. I actually don't want leftovers or anything. I've
Really?
I've been eating so much.
Okay, that's fair. That's
But
fair.
so I'm looking forward to tomorrow, but then I gotta leave the food behind after
Leave
that day.
it, leave it on the field.
Yes.
Leftovers. I feel like it's widely acknowledged that leftovers are the best part. So I'm very much
I
looking forward to
know.
leftovers. But
I'm
that's,
probably not.
I say this. Well,
This is my intention.
we're gonna check in with you at the next pre-chat to see how you did on this goal. We're gonna go back and evaluate your performance.
Okay. Don't judge me too harshly.
That's amazing. Yeah, we're cooking tomorrow. We don't have a ton of family in town that's coming for Thanksgiving, so it's just the four of us and my mom. But then I love breakfast food and I love like holiday breakfast. And so I was like, I'm gonna make
Ooh.
big breakfast. And I was like, no one's gonna eat it. Because like we have, my family, but my kids are small. So for them, it's gonna be either breakfast or Thanksgiving that they're gonna be able to eat, like realistically, like little
Yeah.
stomachs. My mom's not a big breakfast person. So I'm gonna do breakfast and I just invited a couple of like neighbor families over because I was like, everyone's got their own like Thanksgiving meal plans, but if you want breakfast, like come over. So we're doing that. So I'm excited for that. It's just an excuse for me to cook cinnamon rolls, honestly,
That sounds amazing.
and not have to eat 8 of them myself. So yeah.
So what are you reading right now?
I'm reading a bunch. I feel like for some reason, I don't know if it's the colder weather or I've just been walking a lot or drive. I drove a lot to Y'allfest, so I listened to an audiobook. I listened to The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the new Hunger Games book. I'm getting ready for the movie. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm excited. I am currently, so I finished that. That was fantastic. It's kind of like you get in like President Snow's head as a young teen and kind of see like how he became who he was. And it's just a really good like villain origin story. Um, and right now I'm reading The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, which is historical, like Gothic, set in set in Spain. I don't know exactly what era, like 1800s Spain. It's very, very good. Very creepy. And then I'm also listening or reading physical copy of Calamity by Constance Fay, which is one of Bramble's new books. It's like a space opera romance set loosely based on the life of Calamity Jane, which is kind of interesting, like
Mm,
Calamity Jane in space. And that's really fun too. So I'm having a great time. How about
that
you?
sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sounds real fun. Right now I'm reading Gideon the Ninth. I'm bouncing back and forth between reading it and listening to the audiobook. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
doing
the way
like
to do
weird
it.
things to my brain because I can't read at work. So I'm listening to the audiobook, but then it's like
Yeah.
my brain's like, oh yeah, the voices are in my head
Yeah.
now.
When you read it, like the physical copy, do you hear the audiobook narrator's voice in your head now?
Not exactly. I
Okay.
think it depends. Like with Gideon, kind of, yeah. But
Yeah,
not always. It's kind of weird.
that's
But
funny.
but I want to read the next book. I think it's like Harold the Ninth or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's
Yeah.
actually listening to it now.
Nice.
But I want to do that one. And I think, oh yeah, we're reading like Crooked Kingdom together. It's like our
Oh, yeah.
bath time read.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. I love that y'all do
yeah,
that. That's so cute.
that's fun. That's it.
That's awesome. What are you working on?
Oh, I'm still working on my sci-fi. Okay, I think my project's gonna be like sci-fi
Yeah.
fantasy combined
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was doing sci-fi stuff and then I found myself doing fantasy
Magic.
stuff.
Yeah,
And I was like,
totally.
let's just leave it. Like,
This
let's just
is
have fun with it.
this is your id project. This is like Chelsea throws
Yes.
everything you love into
Hmm.
the, yeah. So I think there are no rules. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think
This is
that's
just a
great.
blender of fun. And I love
That's
it.
awesome. You're still having fun. That's good. Yeah, I'm still working on edits for this middle grade, which is actually going well. Like I feel like it took me a long time to like find my footing. I think the transition from I was so deep in the dividing sky between like line edits and copy edits and all that stuff to go from like dystopian YA romance to like contemporary middle grade um is just like such a different headspace. I'm like, okay, I'm back in
Mhm.
Atlanta and I'm 12 years old and like there's no technology. It's like so weird. So the bad guy's like a camp counselor. So it's not like evil like government. It's
Overlord.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like this one dude who's like a college kid. So yeah, it's a different headspace, and it took me some time to get into it, but I think I finally figured it out, and I'm about halfway through my edits, and I'm feeling really good. And my edit letter is fantastic and like lays out a really clear path. So
That's
you know,
great.
it's not as painful as developmental edits can be. So I'm grateful for that. Oh, and I got, you know this, but I got the sketches for a map for the dividing sky yesterday.
That's
And
so
I
exciting.
lost my mind. When I found out that I was going to be getting a map, I was kind of like, really? Because I feel like so many sci-fi and dystopian books that I love don't have maps, and so many fantasy books that I love do. And I was like, this is awesome. And it's kind of a problem because when we first decided to do a map, I was going to go look for like comps. So I didn't want anything that felt too fantasy. I wanted it to feel
Mm-hmm.
kind of sci-fi and a little rough around the edges, but there really aren't that many sci-fi maps. And so it was really hard to figure out,
Mm.
how to show the illustrator the aesthetic that I wanted, because she's done a lot of fantasy maps, but this is kind of new. And what I
Maybe
figured,
video game
that's
maps?
what I did. That's what I did. So I did like,
Perfect.
yeah, I did like BioWare, like a bunch of like really like gritty video game maps. And
That's
there are
so
some,
perfect.
it was perfect. So like, yeah. So I sent her a bunch of video game maps, and I think that she nailed it. Like I'm really
That
excited.
is so cool. I
Yeah.
can't wait.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so
cool.
cool. Because like you don't see that much. Like sci-fi maps, like
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. So I was like, what's like the closest thing I can think of? And there's so many good like in-world video game maps. So yeah, I think we
We're
did
on the
it.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, we got
Awesome.
it. Our guest this week is Kwame Mbalia. Chelsea, you were not there for this interview, but you are the reason that we got Kwame on the show.
Mm.
And I really want our listeners to understand and appreciate your determination and your hustle to make this happen.
Well, yeah. So I saw him at like a local like book event in Vegas, and I knew that we wanted to have him as a guest, but we hadn't gotten like you sent the email, Jill, or
I
DM or
did.
whatever,
I did.
and we hadn't had him confirm yet. And I was like, you know what? Let me go do some little networking. So I walked over to him and
So good.
I think I got him, I bought one of his books and I had him sign it. And I was like, the Afronauts have reached out to you actually about an interview. And he's like,
Amazing.
oh yeah. And then I was like, yep. And we're waiting for your reply. And right then and there, he like looked and he saw Jill's message and he's like, I'm going to
Amazing.
actually reply to her right now. And it's
Amazing.
just so funny. And we took a picture together too. Or maybe I
It's
took a picture.
so
I think he
good.
took a picture to send to you.
Yes, I got the DM, and it was literally like, "Hello, Jill. I'm standing with Chelsea right now," with like a little like smiley face emoji, and I was like, "You are not." I was so impressed. I consider myself like when I have to be, I can be pretty extroverted. I don't know that I would have done that. I don't
mean,
know that.
I feel like I'm like I recharge. I need my recharge time, but then when
Yeah,
I'm like out and about and I'm feeling good, I'm just like
I
I can't be contained.
yeah, I was impressed. I was like, we got Chelsea on the right day.
Yeah, exactly.
You
It's like
did,
you
you
got to
made
be
it
on a
happen.
social
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, and it paid off. And it was a great interview. I'm excited for listeners to hear it. Kwame is just a fantastic I think voice for writers, and just having writers be that conduit for storytelling of all shapes and sizes and diverse backgrounds. I think he's made his mark in middle grade with the Tristan Strong series, and other stories, but I think it's surprised to hear in this conversation that he actually has passion for all sorts of different genres and age categories. I gotta send him a copy of The Dividing Sky when it's out, because I feel like it's actually like up his alley. It's funny how middle grade authors can kind of get pigeonholed into one kind of story, but obviously, like we're adults, we have other tastes and preferences and
Yeah.
things that we like to read and watch. So yeah.
Hey, Afronauts. I'm Beatrice Winifred Eicher,
I'm Jill too.
and we're your hosts for this episode of The Hero's Journey, where we sit down with Black writers in the speculative fiction space.
Our hero today is Kwame Mbalia. Kwame is a husband, father, writer, a New York Times bestselling author, a former pharmaceutical metrologist, and a publisher with Freedom Fire Books, an imprint of Disney-Hyperion. His debut middle grade novel, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, was awarded a Coretta Scott King author honor, and it, along with the sequels Tristan Strong Destroys the World and Tristan Strong Keeps Punching, is published by Rick Riordan Presents, Disney-Hyperion. He's the co-author of Last Gate of the Emperor with Prince Joel Makonnen from Scholastic Books, and the editor of the #1 New York Times bestselling anthology, Black Boy Joy, published by Delacorte Press. A Howard University graduate and a Midwesterner now in North Carolina, he survives on dad jokes and Cheez-Its. Thanks for joining us today, Kwame.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so let's start off with a fun one. What tropes or premises are auto buys or auto watches for you?
I would have to say auto buys are on the science fiction side. Anything that's a sci-fi, romance where you might get in the way.
Stop.
Anything with pining, anything, but I am a cynic. Like I am a sucker for the torturous ending where they don't get together.
Oh,
like,
man.
Ooh, okay.
Just stab me in the heart and twist it.
Wow.
Let me cry myself to sleep.
All right.
That's
and
honest.
then in the middle grade space, anything with a school where there's some sort of school-based adventure where they have to deal with the rigors of academics while also saving the world.
Yeah.
Because that's what our kids are doing right now. So that's also an auto buy.
I love that.
Wow. Yeah, I do love that. That's a really good perspective on that. That is what our kids are doing right now.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So on the sci-fi romance side, you're like Rogue One-esque, like something where they could have had it all.
Yes, Rogue One was noticeably light on the romance part.
Fair. Maybe not in my mind, but yeah.
Yeah.
But in reality.
But yes, doom and gloom and everything is terrible, but there's this little bright seed, this tendril of romance that we may or may not be able to act upon because of duty and honor and all sorts of things.
Oh man, speaking my language. Absolutely.
So yeah, anything like that.
That's great.
Okay, that makes sense. So along that same vein, what is a book that came out in the last couple of years that you absolutely love?
Of course, I had an answer prepped and then the question was asked and it automatically disappeared. I really loved Terry J. Benton's Blood Debts for the young adult.
Yes, we're big fans.
Yes.
Yeah, magic, wizardry, steeped in Black culture and just messy family drama.
So messy.
Yes.
Absolutely loved it. On the middle grade side, I feel like there's so many. I get sent so many books that are out, that aren't out, that are soon to be published, drafts that I've read, blurbs. So it's really, I'm trying to think of one. I know the same Terry J. Benton has one coming out, but I feel like it's cheating if I choose him. The last thing I read was a middle grade I don't even know if it's middle grade, but my 8-year-old loved it. So it's a graphic novel, but it's a nonfiction graphic novel. It's called Yummy, A History of Desserts.
Ooh.
Anything that will get my 8-year-old to sit there and read something and then get her to ask me to read it and want to talk about it. Like that's a win.
That's cool.
That is like, it's something that'll pull her from Roblox or Netflix or YouTube playthroughs of the latest Zelda game. Like a book that gets her to sit down and read it all from front cover to back cover. Like that's a win. So that's Yummy, A History of Desserts by Victoria Grace Elliott.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sounds great. I'm gonna forget that for my kiddos. I'm gonna take notes. So we have a question here about what do you love writing for kids, but I'm actually going to flip it first and I'm going to ask you what are some of the challenges about writing for kids?
I think if you're new to writing kid lit, it's there's this stigma or a connotation that it's easier because writing for kids is easier, and then writers tend to make the mistake of talking to kids as they're writing, or talking about kids as they're writing, and not holding a conversation with kids through their writing. I think that's a mistake that a lot of writers make when they're new to, and you know, new, old, experienced, or amateurs. Like, you enter into this space and you're like, I'm gonna write a story for kids, and it's gonna have adventure and wonder, and it's gonna have magic and mystery. And then through all of that, you actually forget about the actual kids in the story and who will be reading the story. So that's a challenge. It's one that I grapple with all the time. I think I have an actual revision pass in my, you know, process where I'm like, all right, Kwame, who are you talking to? Are you talking to gatekeepers who will be reading the book? Or are you going to be talking to the children who will actually be reading the book? And so it's something that I try to focus on. And hopefully, you know, sometimes it works. Sometimes I have to scrap it and go back to the drawing board because, you know, I find out that this conversation that I was having is more adult or more young adult, or maybe it's a picture book, but it's not necessarily maybe the middle grade book that I was thinking of writing.
Yeah. You're making me think too about like the responsibility, right? Like there's like the entertainment aspect, there's the authenticity aspect, but there's also this like, you have a responsibility to be thoughtful and intentional with, you know, whatever that story kind of implies or teaches kids about the world. And like, that's a really hard like triangle to balance.
And honest, you know, I don't know where that fits in the triangle, but it's important to be honest, because kids will, you know, young readers will latch on to that fact that if you're being dishonest in an instant and the vibes are off. And then they're off, you know, you find the latest, you know, slime creation to terrorize parents' carpets with.
Yes. Wow. How do you find a balance between writing intentionally for children and and selling books, like making sure that the book is sellable also, and when you're selling the books, keeping in mind you're selling it to those gatekeepers, even though, you know, you're writing for the children? Like, how do you keep that like balance?
I mean, it is a definite struggle. I mean, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. When I think it helps for me, one, that, you know, I have 4 children. The oldest is 15, the youngest is 3, you know, and when I was first starting to write TRISTAN, you know, those oldest 2 were they were entering right into that middle grade, and so I was steeped in it. And surrounded by it. There's no more perfect research than having your audience right there existing and doing things that, you know, might or might not end up in a book someday. It also hurts that I'm immature, and you know, I find a way to put a poop joke in a book every single time I start off in a draft. Sometimes it makes it, sometimes it doesn't. I literally wrote one today that I'm very proud of, and I hope it stays. And so when you do that, like, you know, when you have that humor, when you're not afraid to stoop to their level and literally have that conversation with them, it's one of my favorite things about doing school visits. It's because I learn so much. I'm sitting and talking with them. You know, it's not a lecture. It's like, if I could do a 60-minute Q&A instead of a presentation, I'll do that, because I walk away from that. I've learned something, they've learned something. And I feel like it rubs off on the writing. And I don't know how many writers will go out and do that. Like, you'll go out and find your location that you're setting your book in. Oh, you know, this book takes place in a museum. Let me go do some research in the museum. Or, you know, this book deals with storms. Let me go do some research on storms. But are you going to research with your audience? Like, are you going to go sit in the middle grade classroom and volunteer and be a parent helper on a kid's fun day when everyone's running around hurling water balloons and having a color race? Are you going to submit yourself to that? Like, that's because that's what
that's a fair question.
That's what it takes.
That is fair.
And that honesty that we're talking about.
I love that.
Wow, what an amazing, oh, I love that. The publishing industry, like, it's so complicated and imperfect, but like when we're thinking about writing for kids, I really try to hold on to those kind of experiences. Like for instance, I'm a children's soccer coach, and I leave practice every time with so much inspiration for stories and for characters and for themes and for struggles. Like I totally, like when you said that, I was like, that makes sense, because it's not until you're like among them that you're like among them. It's not until you're among them
in the ranks.
I'm clearly childless. There's not.
No, it's true though.
You're among them that like you get the best material. That's always been my experience.
Exactly, and you know the adage is to write what you know. I mean, if you don't sit with them, talk with them, eat with them, lunch with them, make mistakes with them, and then correct your behavior with them, like how are you learning? You know, how are you going to write what you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would like to know something about the publishing industry that gives you hope.
That it continues to exist. That's always a plus. Reading is powerful. Writing is powerful. So being able to transmit those words to young people or to people in general, that's always a great thing. I mean, I could cheat and be like, you know, I have an imprint, and that's giving me hope.
That is nice. I mean,
I can say that I've seen, you know, more and more writers reaching out, asking questions, sharing drafts than I have before. I could say that you know, when I don't sneak into her room, but like when I walk past my tween's room and she's like in the middle of writing something or drawing because she wants to be an author illustrator, you know, that gives me hope. The young people who ask questions and specifically about writing advice because they want to finish their stories, you know, and at the end of the day, it always comes back to the young people. They're the ones who give me hope, right? As long as we have children that are hungry for stories, we're going to have an industry that wants to feed them, you know, whether that's, you know, capitalist driven or not. You know, the fact is that we'll always need storytellers, and we will fit into that mold of being a storyteller, whether or not the publishing industry recognizes it or not. We existed before there was a publishing industry. The storyteller role existed before there was money being made off of it. We were just fed by the community after we told the story, right? So the children who are sitting in the audience, they're always going to give me hope. And that's, I think, what I always fall back on. Someone tweeting at me, hey, I loved your book. Someone sending me an email, hey, I loved your book. A thank you card from a school visit, hey, we loved your visit, we're going to buy your books. Like that's what gives me, you know, hope. And it might not be useful to the aspiring author who's looking to break into publishing, who you know, might not have people sending them that feedback or whatever. And you know, that's when I hop on Twitter and I'm like, listen, you know, I see you, you're writing, you're great, keep writing. Don't stop writing, make sure you're writing, because I know that you're driven and you have purpose and you don't have that feedback loop feeding you. So that's what I'm here for. I am your feedback loop.
Feedback loop.
Is there a piece of advice that you give those like tween, like would-be authors, especially when they're trying to get started?
I try to reframe their idea of what writing block is. I don't like using the term writing block. I like to use the term a creative well, because then you have that image of like, it's natural. Wells run dry, and you have to allow them time to refill. And you refill your creative well with more creativity, meaning you consume it. You read, you listen, you watch, you view, you submerge yourself in more creativity to allow your well to refill, and then you can continue to draw from it. And then also just, you know, the idea of finding community. It's a lot easier to, you know, writing is such a solitary experience. It's a lot easier to write when you have that community, whether it's virtual or, you know, if you're in a school, you know, you have a creative writing club, you have a before or after school program, or you just have a group of friends where you're like, we're going to write this story together.
Yeah. That's great. Those are the best, when you'd like write a little bit and then give it to your friend and they would do the next chapter. And you go
I used to love doing that.
Those were so good.
thing
I
that
used to love doing that.
it was like a decade ago, that my friend was doing with that he looped me into, where it's basically like you write like a page, and then you send it on, and another person writes, and it was like a 20. It was like the opposite of a chain letter. You know what I mean?
I used to love doing that. We used to call it quill telephone.
Oh, okay.
Because it was like a game of telephone, but we were right. It was so much fun. We had so much fun just passing papers around in class. We were obviously not working, but
it's a great fun activity. If you're a creative writing teacher or anything like that, it's a great little exercise to jumpstart the creativity at the beginning of class. Just like write a sentence and pass it on.
I love that.
And then have someone read out this mad lib of a story that
that was always
and to see yourself in it, right? See the part that you contributed to, or like someone pick up on it and continue a thread. And that's really special.
Exactly.
That's cool. Well, you mentioned Twitter, and you are, I put infamous here, but really I'd say you're famous. You're known on Twitter for popping up in the timeline and demanding 50 words ASAP, drop and give me 50. What are strategies that you've found for finding time to write when other parts of life get in your way?
To not be so beholden to the tool, right? The tool exists to help you write. The tool isn't what makes you write. The tool isn't the only thing that you can use to write. Right? Some people have, for some people, ritual is what makes them the most productive. I need to be in this space at this time, with this music playing or this candle burning, and that's great. I found that with children that doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Sometimes, I might be running errands and I don't have time to sit in that space. So for me, I just surround myself with tools. If that's a pen and a pad with sticky notes, if that's my phone, if that's I have the free write, Traveler, portable Traveler, word processor. The Scrivener app is on my iPad, it's on my laptop, and it's on my phone. I just found this new web app called Notion that I use to brainstorm and outline. Google Docs is always in my toolbox. So, I grew up, my mother is a writer as well, and her process was, she didn't have time to write during the week. She was a professor. And she was a mother of 4 kids, you know what I mean? So her and my dad, they had chores, they had responsibilities. She also had ideas. So that there was, on any given day, you could walk around the house and find a sticky note with a word, a neat phrase, a piece of dialogue. And her routine is, at the end of every week, on like a Saturday morning, she'd make a huge pot of coffee. She'd be up at like 4 or 5 a.m. and she would collate all of those sticky notes into her draft, whether it was writing longhand or using the little typewriter that she had. Like that was her process. That was what worked for her. And it might not work for you, it might not work for me, but I am always of the mindset, and this is what I tell young writers, like, don't let your tool stop you from writing. You can't find your pen, grab a pencil. You're in the shower, you better breathe on that glass and write on the shower glass so you don't lose that idea. Steam will bring it back. Just hop back in. Don't let the tool stop you. You know what I mean? The tool is there to help. The tool, the absence of the tool shouldn't mean the absence of writing.
Wow. I love that. That's a beautiful story about your mother.
She's my inspiration. I end every school visit presentation with a picture of her, just as a reminder of where it started and who was the inspiration for both my love of reading and this passion for writing.
Very cool.
I'm gonna take a left turn and go back to social media, because I really am interested. Like Jill said, you're not infamous but famous on Twitter for the drop and give me 50. But I wanted to know your philosophy surrounding social media, especially social media for authors, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
I am not the person that you should ask. I am not responsible at all. I spend way too much time. Before,
okay.
you know, it was Twitter. I'm still on Twitter, but I used to spend a lot of time on Twitter. Now it's TikTok, you know, just watching videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My advice is to do what is healthiest for you. For some people, that means getting off social media completely. For some people, that means just, you know, hopping on, you know, making a updates only account. For some people, social media is where they derive their sense of community and their sense of, you know, unwinding from, you know, a grueling day and stress relief. And then there's me, and I am like, it's really bad.
Okay.
I used to get, I think like, what do you call it? We have a family plan, and we would get like, it's not usage alerts, but like alerts for like,
like data.
Where the most time was spent and da da da. I was skewing the social media apps. And I was like, when you took me out, it was a much more respectable number. I had to turn that off. I was like, listen, I might lose track of who's spending time on what, but I will not be embarrassed.
not in my house.
99.5% of TikTok usage comes from Kwame Mbalia.
No.
What side of TikTok are you on? Sides, plural, maybe. Can you give me a couple. Throw out some words.
Now, I mean, I stay on certain flavors of book talk. What's video games? You know, I play a lot of video games, so like Zelda's on there, Diablo's on there. And then you know, the algorithm does a really good job of just like catering to what my, you know, frenetic mind, you know, is interested in at any given time. You know, a week ago it was, you know, Notion tutorial, so I could get up to speed running that. I had some great salmon recipes pop up. Cook Talk is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And then, you know, every so often, I feel like it cycles through every month. You know, I get a great batch of like independent, like indie artists, like songwriters and singers and rappers who will come through that I get to add to my my Spotify playlist. So yeah, that's my current TikTok algorithm in a nutshell.
Oh, I love that. I'm on Potato Talk, and I highly recommend that you join.
Like actual potatoes?
No, literal potatoes. Where like they're like deep frying. There's
okay.
Cheese,
you know where I was 2 weeks ago? I was on Lemon Talk 2 weeks ago. There was this one lady who just was everything, all lemon dessert, lemon custard. It was delicious.
Love it. I of course was on Apple and Pumpkin Talk.
Yeah.
In the fall, and I will be this fall.
I feel like that sounds great. I mean, I will say, like, I don't know about like usage overall, but just what you've described sounds very healthy in the sense of like
it sounds well-rounded.
Yeah, and there's so much like negative, like toxic energy, like, you know, on Twitter in particular. I feel like I've never seen you like have a bad day on Twitter, right? Like it seems
publicly.
Like yeah. So like whatever's going on, like inside, right?
You know,
yeah.
For me, it's never, you know, I have the same problem with social media that I have with my eating, in that it's not about what I eat, but how much of it I consume. You know, logging on to TikTok is just like popping open, you know, a can of veg, you know, or a bag of like veggie straws.
Right, exactly.
They're not bad for me, but if I slam the whole bag
that's
down my face hole, like it's not necessarily a great thing to do.
Why do they make them so good though? That's the question.
You know, I don't know. It's
moderation.
Yeah.
I blame the Keebler elves.
That's awesome. Well, earlier you mentioned Freedom Fire, so let's talk about it. So you put on this new hat as a publisher of Disney's new imprint, Freedom Fire. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I didn't know what form or vestige that it would take. But it's just the idea of helping, putting the, you know, sending the ladder, well, the the adage is sending the ladder back down, but I want to send the elevator. I want to send the lift. I want to send, whatever magical spell I can to bring as many, Black authors back up there with me the way that, people did for me. And that's what Freedom Flyer is. Freedom Flyer is all about joyous adventures. It's all about fun and whimsy. It's all about centering Black children, Black fun, Black wonder, and framing it not as some sort of isolated slice of society, but integrated into society the way that we normally are, And I think that's what is lost in a lot of these conversations about, well, why do you need this specific imprint? Why do you need this specific day? Why do you need this specific month? And, I use the same analogy that I used when we were talking about Black Boy Joy, and that, yes, the title and the subject is Black Boy Joy, but you've been to a birthday party where it wasn't your party. You still had cake. You still had fun. You maybe pinned the tail on the donkey, depending on how old you were, or maybe you did shots. I don't know. But either way, you had a blast, and it wasn't about you. And that's what this imprint is really about. It's about celebrating a segment of society that I want to celebrate every single day, and having fun with it, and welcoming the community, not just our community, but the world at large, welcoming them into this celebration, because it's a lot of fun when more people join in, you know?
I love that.
People tend to react strongly to that analogy, because if you still are on the opposite side after that analogy, you are like a toddler throwing a tantrum.
Yeah,
right.
You just,
for sure.
you just refuse to have fun.
Right.
Yeah, it's my mom used to say, joy can be infectious if you let it. If you don't let it, then you won't get it. I kind of, that was always my like mindset around this discourse of do we need this, do we need that? And it's like, well, why are you upset about it? Like, why can't you just be in this celebration with us? Don't you want to celebrate with everyone else?
Well, there's this idea of there only being enough slices of the pie, the American pie. There's only enough slices for a few people.
Absolutely.
And so when someone else gets a slice, you're like, they're taking my slice. And it's like, no, we're just baking more pies. And you refuse to look around to see that. Like, we're not taking anyone's slice. We're just making more pies, and we have the resources and tools to do that. So get out of the way.
It reminds me, I mean, I think Freedom Fire and like Joy Revolution is another imprint coming out on the Penguin Random House side that's like Nicole and David, you talk all the time about like seeing like characters of color and like Black characters in our entirety, right? And not just kind of having that like one slice that we're so used to kind of being portrayed through in the public eye and in media, to be able to show like, the entire complexity of our humanity.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely exciting to be helping to head this up, to be able to shout about it. Like, there are some wonderful, wonderful titles that I can't wait to scream about as soon as I'm physically able to. Like,
Same.
I'm gonna hit backflips, and I don't do backflips. You know what I mean? Like, I was the kid that held the mattress. I'm not the one who was on the mattress backflipping. But I'm gonna try to hit a backflip for this, because we have some great titles that hopefully, by the time you, dear listener, are hearing this, you'll be like, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Well, about being a publisher, I'm curious, I think for us, as kind of like new and upcoming authors, like seeing authors have, long and extensive careers as authors is something that we're used to seeing. But this kind of trajectory of going from being an author to being an author and a publisher is kind of new. And so I'm curious if that's something that you always knew you wanted to do, or is an opportunity that presented itself along the road.
I didn't know I was going to be a writer 7 years ago. So, but as I started writing and as I started interacting with other writers, and I saw how much the community narrows as you move from, I've written a book or I've written a book and I have an agent, or I've written a book and I have an agent and I have a deal. Like every time you move up to that next level, it narrows and narrows and narrows the population.
Right.
And, you know, intentionally or unintentionally, but a lot of times intentionally, you know, we as a people were getting left out. And I remember asking my editor of Tristan Strong, Steph Lurie, I was like, how do you become an editor? Like, what is it? What are the requirements? Is there a career, like, because that wasn't in the career day.
Right.
It
really wasn't. Yeah.
You know?
I wasn't
like,
at school that day.
Do I have to go back for a degree in English? And we had a good conversation about that. I thought, you know, down the line when I could, you know, pull together, you know, scrape together enough pennies, I would like create like my own like independent press, sort of like a Grey Wolf or something like that. Yeah. And try to help that way. I didn't realize that, you know, I could do this where, you know, I think a lot of it is the success of Black Boy Joy. A lot of it is, you know, just the talks with different editors and publishers and being passionate about seeing success within the community, not just myself, that really led to like, hey, let's partner, you know, with Kwame, Disney said, and, you know, try to figure out a way to get as many voices like his or better than his into the stage to let the audience, you know, see. Because the one thing about, I think, the readers, right, is that there's very few, like I come from the video game side, and so like you'll have fanboys, right? Fanboys and fangirls are like, oh, you know, Sony's PlayStation sucks, or Xbox is weird, and Nintendo is for kids, you know, like the book community, the readers, we're not like that. Like if you know, we're not publisher loyalists, you know what I mean?
True.
Like,
that's a good point.
It's Scholastic or Harper or, you know, Abrams or Disney or whoever publishes, Simon and Schuster publishes a book. We're not like, oh yeah, S&S till I die. You know? Like, Harper,
no,
what?
Never
No,
heard that
you know, we're not like that. What we're like is, there's this book with this Black character that goes on an adventure and it was fun. Is there more books like, are there more books like that? Yeah. Does Harper, does Penguin random out? Who carries them?
Anywhere?
We don't care. Who publishes them? We want to read them. And then as authors, it's kind of similar. As an author, I'm like, I'm not in competition with you. Like, we are colleagues, because when you succeed, they're looking for more books like yours. And if I've written one, we uplift each other, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
it's very different, this book community, when it's working the right way. And so that's what really was at the forefront of my mind as we were coming up with Freedom Fire. This idea that we're not here to compete with anyone, right? We're here to coexist with everyone. And we want our books, just like we were talking about, there are, you know, more slices of the pie. We're not taking readers away from anyone. If anything, we might be bringing more readers to you. Right. And that's what's important at the end of the day, is the readers. And I think that's what Freedom Fire is truly about.
I love that. That's so true. I mean, the way that you said it makes me think, like, you know, you're bringing books to the world that will be some kid's favorite book that was maybe like about to stop being a reader altogether, right? Like had maybe given up on finding the book where they could see themselves, right? And if there's one more book out there that makes them think differently or makes them fall in love with reading again, then like the entire book community wins.
You know, all you have to do is listen to librarians and booksellers, because they'll tell you like what the kids are reading, what they're looking for. They're like, do you have anything like this? Do you have anything? Kids don't care if it's published or who it's published by or whatever. Or, they just want to read the book. And so that's what Freedom Fire is here to do. We're here to bring books that kids want to read.
I love that. Well, I can't wait.
I can't wait either.
Okay, this has been wonderful. Here's our wrap-up question. If the publishing gods could grant you one wish, what would it be? The wish.
If the publishing gods could grant one wish, what would it be? God, I could be really selfish.
I encourage
I am going to be really selfish. I would say I would want my daughters to be even better writers than I am. And that's,
Aww.
I mean, I don't even know if I need the publishing gods
You
to
know,
because they're well on their way.
Yeah.
Their trajectory, just listen to them and their ideas. They make me laugh so much. And listen, I'm just here to give them a boost, to be the stepping stone that my mother was for me. And so that's, you know what, that's my wish. I want to be I want to be to my children what my mother was to me. An advocate, a critic, a critique partner, a beta reader, and a supporter all in one.
Wow. I love that so much.
Yeah, I love that.
It sounds like you're well on your way.
Yeah.
I gotta go call my mother.
Right? Like, wait a second. Aw. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Kwame. Where can our listeners find you?
If you haven't been paying attention, I'm on social media a lot. I'm on Twitter at KSEKOUM. That's KSEKOUM on Twitter. And on Instagram, I am at Mbalia1. So my last name and the number 1. On TikTok, I am not telling you because I work there.
On TikTok, it's none of your business. Don't ask me.
You might randomly see this 20 follower account, favorite and bookmark you. So,
I'm just gonna post some lemon content, and you're gonna come to me. So it's gonna
We'll come
that's
running.
how you reel me in. I'm telling you, it's the lemon.
I don't have to find you.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I enjoyed our conversation. And
yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful things.
Oh, thank you so much.